Gilbert Burns takes on Michael Morales this weekend, man, today. I'm going over my full card predictions. Let's get right into it, man. Coming off a bad weekend. I thought there was some decisions I could have gotten potentially. The Urslan one I thought was a pretty close fight versus Sterling. Sterling's not a great fighter, man. He's going to be a guy I'm going to fade very, very soon because his striking doesn't look good. His gas tank doesn't look good. I don't think he's that good of a fighter. But yeah, man, the Iwan fight was bullshit. I thought Iwan clearly won that fight. Bukauskas is a terrible fighter. Honestly, I mean, that guy's horrible. I don't know how you gave him the fight. I think Bukauskas won the third, but man, the guy threw nothing. You know what I mean? He had one decent moment at the end of round 2, but that's it. There was nothing up until that point. It's just a horrible decision. 30-27. Somebody scored that fight 30-27 for Bukauskas. Awful, brutal. I mean, just terrible. And the Aldo fight was ridiculous too. I mean, that wasn't even a 10-8 round for Zahabi. It clearly wasn't a 10-8 round for Zahabi. And then he didn't win the second round either. That was a home cooking if I've ever seen it. And now we got 37-year-old Ayman Zahabi thinking he's something special in the division. Like, it's just not fun, man. He's 37 years old. He's not a good fighter at all. And I just don't want to see Ayman Zahabi ever fight again, man. I just put him in the Apex for all I care. Put him with Marcus McGee, someone like that, where he's just going to get torched. So anyways, man, had to get some of my frustration out. But it wasn't a good week, and I'll take accountability for it. But yeah, man, let's turn it around here. First fight up is going to be Tecia Pennington taking on Luana Pinheiro. I'm not even going to go into too much depth with this one, man. I'm going with Tecia Pennington. She's looked pretty good recently, and we'll move on to Hyunsung Park taking on Carlos Hernandez. I like Park a lot, man. I really like his game. He's 9-0, 29 years old, and he's a good fighter, man. He's got good BJJ. Good takedowns, good takedown defense, I'm assuming. We haven't seen too much of it. But what this guy is more of a fight finisher, right? He has one decision on his record. And I don't even know when it was, man. The guy has some kickboxing experience from what I've heard. And he's a pretty solid striker. Now, what I like about Hyunsung Park is his danger. I think the guy hits hard. And I think his submission game is pretty solid as well. I think he has the bigger moments here. He can work off that jab, work off that low kick, and he has a stiff, nice jab. He's got good boxing combinations. He's going to be the guy that is definitely hitting harder. You know what I mean? Bigger moments. They're definitely probably going to see me bet on Hyunsung Park just because I like his game quite a bit, and I like the matchup for him. Hyunsung Park, what I think he struggles with a little bit is defensive striking, but he's not in front of a guy like Carlos Hernandez, who is the best, striker really in all sense. I mean, Hernandez, don't get me wrong, he's a pretty good striker, but not much power in his hands at all, actually. I don't even think he has a TKO on his record. He doesn't. And my issues with Hernandez, very good defensive grappler for sure. You saw that in the Ray Saruya fight. But his striking is okay. He moves well. He's got good footwork. And he can kind of chip at you, but there's nothing behind it, right? There's no power behind it. There's going to be much more power behind Hyunsung Park. Hyunsung Park strikes. Naim Jargal, Tumen Dembarel was able to, drop Hernandez twice. And I will say Naim Jargal's a guy who hits hard. He's explosive. But the reason Hernandez got the nod here was because he was getting takedowns. I don't think he's going to be able to just wrestle Park as easily as he did against Naim Jargal. He won't be able to, I assume, I hope. But I like Park quite a bit. He's been out for a while, dominated Shannon Ross in every aspect, finished him, and that's what Hyunsung Park does. He finishes fights, and he's powerful, good boxing. He's just bigger moments, hits harder. A chance I could play the KO here as well. We'll see. But to me, I think Hyunsung Park wins this fight, and I think he wins relatively easily. So let's move on to the next one where we got Denise Gomes, Elise Reed. This should be all Denise Gomes, man. I like Denise Gomes hits hard. She's dangerous. She's knocking people out at strawweight. She's dangerous as hell and young as well. I don't even know who Elise Reed is, but she's going to get her shit waxed, in my opinion. But we'll move on. Luana Santos, Tainara Lisboa. Man, Luana Santos, I think this is a tight fight, right? Yeah. man, Luana Santos looked like shit. It looked like shit. She doesn't look like shit. She's very good looking, but she didn't look good against Casey O'Neill, like, at all. Like, she looked awful. And that was a problem for me because I think that Lisboa is actually a solid striker. She is a solid striker. She's older for sure, but I think she can win this fight, man. I know she's got some Muay Thai, background, and I think she can win, man. She's going to be the better striker here. I was really not impressed with Luana Santos' last performance. And I'm going to go with Lisboa here. It's a tight fight. I'm not going to bet on it for sure. But anyways, man, let's move on. Now we get into the better fights here. Connor Mathews versus Yadier Delvalle. Man, Mathews, he's a huge underdog here. Plus 330. He's taking this fight relatively quickly after getting stomped on by Jose Delgado, who I'm a big believer in. I think Delgado's got a bright future. Very fun, exciting to watch. The loss versus Bazooka, not great. Dennis Bazooka is not a good fighter, not a great fighter. But Connor Mathews, he's not bad. He's, for the most part, man, I want to say that he can grapple. He's a balanced fighter. He can grapple. His striking isn't good, but it's not like, I think he's got good movement. Like, his footwork is quite nice. He's able to open these shots up, but he does hesitate, and he doesn't have that much power. I do feel like he's a little bit smaller here. But if this fight hits the mat, I definitely wouldn't count Connor Mathews out because I do think that that's his strong suit, is the grappling. And I think there's a route that Connor Mathews can take to win this fight, and that's to counterstrike Yadier Delvalle. But from what I've seen out of Delvalle is he's tough. He's very tough. You know what I mean? 28 years old. Contender Series fight was a good one for him. I think his best performance for sure. Walked this dude down. Antonio Monteiro, and just clinch and elbows and ferocious pace of a fight. And he is a grappler. His striking, Yadier's, is not great. I'll be honest with you. But he's powerful and he's tough. He's durable. He looks like, from the shots that I've seen him eat, looks like he can eat a good shot, which I don't think Connor Mathews can do that. Connor Mathews probably is the slicker striker, and maybe potentially the better wrestler. Potentially. But the brute and the strength and the power of Yadier Delvalle is going to be giving problems. Delvalle's got a pretty good, regional record and good fights. Michael Aswell is a good fighter. Struggled a little bit in that one with the pressure of Michael Aswell. And if Connor Mathews is able to stuff some takedowns, get out of the clinch and pressure, he can do some good work. But Connor Mathews doesn't let his hands go quite enough. I think that if, there's a chance Connor Mathews can win this fight, and I do think the line is very wide, especially considering that Delvalle hasn't had multiple good performances. I think that this performance is really his best, and there's other ones on here that aren't the best, and kind of sloppy. This is a spot where I'm definitely not considering betting on anybody, and not particularly confident in Yadier Delvalle. But I am going to pick him just because the durability, the clinch game that he's got, in the kind of dog and ferociousness, right? I think that he's going to bring the fight to Mathews, and I don't think that Mathews is going to be good enough to stop it. Now, if this fight gets to the grappling, like I said, I think Mathews might be able to reverse him or choke him, honestly, potentially, because I do think Mathews is quite slick on the mat. But overall, man, Yadier Delvalle is bigger, he's stronger, he's much more durable from what I've seen. And I think he's going to whoop him in the clinch with the strength and just the force that Delvalle has. So I'm going to go with Yadier Delvalle. I like his game quite a bit. I just don't know if I'm ready to lay minus 430 on him at all. I'm not ready to do that. So this is going to be a spot where I stay away from. But Yadier will be my pick. And we'll move on to the next fight. Jared Gordon taking on Thiago Moises. It's a close fight. Thiago Moises is a guy that he's so skilled. He's minus 105 here. Pick him pretty much. Like, honestly, it's a guy who's extremely skilled versus a guy who's not that skilled. I mean, I don't want to say Gordon's not that skilled, but I don't think he's nearly as skilled as Moises. Moises, extremely good jiu-jitsu. He's got fast. He's got explosive takedown entries. still only 30 years old, and his striking isn't bad. He's got explosive kicks, great calf kicks. You saw that used in the Trey Ogden fight. He's got good takedowns, good top pressure, good jiu-jitsu, of course, and he's fought some incredible competition. But there's some issues with Thiago Moises I have, and it's number one for me. Whenever I watch Thiago Moises, I see the guy staring, sitting at range, not doing anything. I think if this guy could win so many fights if he would just kick a little bit more, kick the body, throw some kicks up the middle, right? And he throws that calf kick quite a bit. But I just feel like his boxing's not great. And it's just like a mental thing with Moises, I feel like, because he is talented, he is skilled, he is athletic. I just don't know if he's I don't know what's wrong with him, This Ogden fight wasn't a dominant win. He kicked Ogden's legs out. And I did pick Moises because of the leg kicks. Ogden's a guy who's very heavy on the front foot, and I knew that Thiago Moises was going to be able to kick his legs and destroy the legs. And he did do that in the second and third round. But in the first round, it was dominant from Ogden pretty much. Ogden was piecing him up, just destroying him, really. And the Ludovic Klein fight, masterclass. Ludovic Klein destroyed him, was not close, 30-27. I want to even say no moments for Thiago Moises. Thiago Moises got taken down in that fight. He got dominated by Klein. Roosevelt Roberts had a much better fight with Ludovic than Thiago Moises did. The Saint Denis fight, just brutal beating you. You know what I mean? And Melquizael Costa, who's on this card, just a short notice fight. He's a featherweight, and ended up choking him out. And he's got good BJJ. And we've seen Jared Gordon's back taken. Sodiq took his back. Grant Dawson took his back. And I do believe when I watch Thiago Moises, he has that, back-taking ability that these guys possess. I don't want to say he's as good of a grappler as his training partner, Grant Dawson. I don't know, bro. I just feel like he doesn't shoot enough and he doesn't fight the right way. I know that Jared Gordon's going to bring the fight in this one. Jared Gordon's hungry. He's always going out there doing well. I my own problems with Jared Gordon. I think he's undersized. I think he's small for the division. Like I said before, we've seen people take his back, Sodiq and Grant Dawson. Both had success there, but he's still a solid defensive grappler. These guys, Sodiq and Dawson, are extremely good grapplers. Probably, I want to say better than Moises. I am going to say better than Moises. So it's going to be on Thiago to get the takedowns, but if Thiago doesn't get the takedowns, he can still compete because he is that good. But I think that we're going to see Jared Gordon pressure quite a bit here, and that's where we've seen the issues for Thiago Moises. When Thiago Moises is pressured, and I'll give these guys like Moises credit, when he's getting pressured by Benoit Saint Denis and Joel Alvarez. Jared Gordon is not like these guys in terms of power. You know what I mean? But what I will say about Gordon is he can do it for longer than a guy like Benoit Saint Denis can, or longer than a guy like Joel Alvarez can. He can do it for 3 rounds, for 15 minutes. So I think that Gordon comes in here and he puts him on the back foot and destroys him. Not destroys him, but maybe potentially drops the first, maybe gets taken down, but I just trust Gordon more. I think that he's going to pressure Moises where we see Moises not like it, and I think that Gordon might get taken down once or twice in this one, but I think that he wins this fight just off damage, just off pressure, just off volume, which he does a good job at. Solid boxing, nothing crazy, not a bunch of power. But he's disciplined. He's defensively sound. I do worry about his durability. Even in his Bobby Green fight, I know it was a no contest, but got, a lot of damage put on him. He's been knocked out quite a bit. And if you counted that Bobby Green one, which I know he wasn't technically knocked out and he didn't get hit by something big, but he was unconscious, so he'd have 5 knockouts on his record, getting KO'd 5 times. And that's concerning because while Thiago Moises is not a good boxer, really, he does have a heavy right hand, and he will throw hard in the pocket. So there's a chance I could see something like that, but for my best bet, I would say that Moises gets walked down here by Jared Gordon, gets pressured, and Moises won't like the pressure from Gordon. I think Gordon wins on the volume. In this fight versus Haqparast, put on the pressure. Should have won that fight, and I bet on Haqparast. He was like my lock of the week, essentially, right? But we know that Gordon won that fight. You know what I mean? And that's the kind of grit that he possesses. So I am going to go with Gordon. I'm probably going to stay away from it. We'll see what the line does. I know, where is it? It's a pick 'em. I just saw Moises went to an underdog like an hour ago. So we'll see what happens, but I'm probably going to stick with my pick, Gordon. I might be looking at third round KO for Gordon, something like that, or second round. But let's move on to the next fight. We got debuting Matheus Camilo taking on Gabe Green. Now, Gabe Green's moving down to 55, which I don't like. I think that Matheus Camilo is going to knock him out. Camilo fought this guy on the whatever zombie fight night. This guy, this is the dude who asked Dana to get a fight, like in the UFC, the Tajikistan guy. He's a wrestler. This guy was, and Camilo whooped his ass. Camilo, he trains at Extreme Couture. He's got some pretty good wins on his resume. Dorian Ramos, not a bad fighter. In this fight, Camilo got a bit tired, and that's something that could be a problem for him here because Gabe Green is a guy who pushes pace. Good boxing, pushes the pace, and he's going to push the pace probably and try to break Matheus Camilo down. Now, that fight versus Ramos, he looked very tired in. But kind of in this fight versus Nabadov, he looked pretty good, and it was a high-paced fight. He's got nasty low kicks. He's got good boxing, big combinations, and he's powerful. Very powerful. Knocked this guy down multiple times. Sojo, who's not awful, and his wins are quite good on the regional scene. He's got pretty solid wins. I like him to beat Gabe Green. Gabe Green is moving down in weight, and that could be a problem. Gabe Green is a guy who relies on his ability to take shots because he does get hit quite a bit. He's going to get hit a lot. He relies on his pressure, his cardio, and when you're taking a step or moving a weight class down, those things kind of diminish in some sense, right? Your cardio might not be as good. Your durability might not be as good. And Gabe Green, he's coming off a knockout. He's a guy who can be hurt badly, right? He can be hurt very badly. Phil Rowe was able to hurt him. Lanacey dropped him really bad. Machado Gary didn't hurt him that bad, but Machado Gary doesn't hit hard at all. You know what I mean? And now he's moving to 55 where that chin could be compromised a little bit more, coming off a brutal knockout from Brian Battle. Camilo has that kind of power. You know what I mean? Maybe a live betting spot on Gabe Green potentially, but for my best bet, I will be probably betting on Camilo to get a finish in the TKO here, where he is looking at minus 185. And Camilo's got good grappling. If this fight hits the mat, I want to say Green might be a little bit better, but, Camilo's got some triangle arm bars on his record, and I've seen a couple of them throw them up, and his takedown defenses look pretty good. And this Tajikistan guy who was on road or fight, or I don't know what the hell the thing was, but this guy's actually a solid wrestler, and Camilo was taken down a couple times, but Camilo did a pretty good job getting up, destroying the legs, and I like Camilo to win this fight here, man. The next fight up, Julian Erosa taking on Melquizael Costa. I've been picking against Costa for quite a bit now. He's minus 180 here, and I don't know, man. I think he should be higher because I thought Erosa looked awful here, man. This Elkins fight, did he look good to y'all? I don't think he did. The win over C-Rod is whatever. Kind of just got caught in the front choke. I think Costa's win over C-Rod's much more impressive to me. I think Costa's a good kicker. These guys are very similar to each other. But I think Costa's just better, man. I think he is the better boxer. He's going to be younger. He's going to be more athletic. If the fight hits the floor, Erosa's dangerous with his grappling, of course. But so is Costa. He's a good kicker. And so is Erosa. But Erosa just... I'm serious, man. I looked at that last fight versus Elkins, which was not, 4 weeks ago. Did he look good to you guys? Like, he looked horrible to me. I really thought he looked terrible. And I respect both these guys for turning around relatively quickly. Costa's put a good win streak together. Got dominated by my boy Steve Garcia, put out bad. But Costa to me, I'm going to go with Costa. I think he's younger. He's more athletic. I think he's got better boxing a little bit. And Erosa just looked slow, looked bad in his last one. I'm going with Costa. I'm going with Costa by KO. Let's move on. I'm sorry. Nursulton Ruziboev taking on Stoltzfus. Man, I think the line's wide, guys. I do. I think that Ruziboev is not a great fighter, man. I don't really know. When you look at his resume, the guy looks like a killer. 13 TKOs, 20 submissions. I mean, he just looks like a monster. But I don't think I'm that impressed with his game. He is huge for the weight. He's a very good athlete. He's explosive. 6'5", 76-inch reach. Only a 1-inch reach advantage for him in this fight versus Stoltzfus. But I think there's a game plan or a path for Stoltzfus to win this fight, and that's grappling, right? We saw Joaquin Buckley take him down and dominate him on the mat. And I'm questioning myself on why Stoltzfus can't do the same thing. And even on these other fights with Ruziboev, you can see him getting taken down. He's not hard to take down. When he gets there, he is dangerous, aggressive with the submissions. He'll pull a Kimura, he'll throw up triangles, and he is good there. I will give him credit. But these wins at middleweight, these two, Dumas and McConaughey, do nothing for me, absolutely nothing. And his striking doesn't impress me, man. He throws the 1-2. He explodes into the shot, but there's nothing that impresses me that much. Now, I will say that I think Ruziboev holds the advantage with the striking because I think that Dustin Stoltzfus, while I do believe he's pretty solid, he does run into shots. He will put himself into the fire and try to land a bigger shot, which he did in his last one, and it worked out for him versus Marc-Andre Barriou. Now, this is where it gets interesting because I don't think that Nursulton Ruziboev's defensive striking is very good. If you watch his fights, man, his hands are low. He's not doing that much, not countering all that often. He throws from his hips essentially when he's in the pocket, and he does hit hard. He's definitely dangerous. There's no doubt about it. And I can understand why the line is having him as a favorite, but I think it's wide just because there is a very clear path for Stoltzfus. Stoltzfus is a pretty solid grappler. Although he's been submitted twice in his career, he's getting submitted by Rodolfo Vieira. He's getting submitted by GM3, right? These guys have some of the most submissions in the UFC in history, right? Very, very good grapplers. And I do think that when you look at the guys he's losing to, they're not bad. Dawkins, not a bad fighter. Vieira, Mearshart, Abus, Bruno. These guys aren't bad, and he's put together 2 wins. Soriano versus Andre Barriou. In the fight versus Gerald, held him down, controlled him for quite a bit of time. Punahele controlled him, dropped him in that fight, and put together a rear naked choke. Controlled Barriou on the ground. I think he's got a path to victory here, and I think that the number is very wide. So Stoltzfus to me is the best value on the card, I think. I think that he is actually pretty solid. I think if he's able to get inside of that pocket area, maybe land something big over the top on Ruziboev, who doesn't have the best striking defense, but at range, if Stoltzfus rushes in, I could see him getting caught with something. That's something I can see, and I understand it. But I'm going to take the chance on Stoltzfus, man. I'm quite confident that he might be able to get this fight down. And where we've seen Ruziboev taken down constantly by Joaquin Buckley. Give me Stoltzfus here, man. I think it's a bit of a wide line here. We'll move on to the next fight, which is going to be Sodiq Yusuff making his return. He's moving up to lightweight, and he's taking on Marion Santos, who's moving up to lightweight. I'll talk about Marion Santos first. I don't know if I understand the movement, okay? Marion Santos was originally a bantamweight. He moved up to featherweight, and now he's moving up to lightweight. Last performance for Santos was bad. I picked him to win. I bet on him to win. He was one of my more confident picks, and he didn't look good at all. I think that he could have – I think it was a close fight and closer than people want to say, but I do think he kind of lost. And he looked like shit because I don't think that highly of Francis Marshall, by the way. I don't think he's great. And Marion looked like shit in that one, honestly. Khan Offley looked good there, dominated that fight, no big moments. And, yeah, man, I don't know if I necessarily understand the move up. Marion Santos is a guy who likes the range. He needs his range to be able to win fights. He likes to pick you apart from the outside. He's got a good little front kick up the middle, but his best weapon are those calf kicks. His calf kicks are great. It takes you off your feet. Very explosive. He's got solid hands. I think that overall he's going to want this fight to be in the middle of the octagon, and if you're able to take that space away, cutting the cage off, you can beat him, and I think that's what Yusuff's going to do. So I am picking Sodiq Yusuff here as an underdog, slight underdog here, where he's plus 109. I'm going with Yusuff, man. I'm going to actually go show you this picture of Sodiq Yusuff where I just saw, where he looks gigantic. Oh my gosh, my camera's in the way, my bad. He looks gigantic. Like, he looks massive, man. And that's something I think that he's taken this time off, is to get bigger. And he looks huge, and I think he is already kind of bigger, and I know he was moving up, planning to move up. And he's got a good experience, man. He's coming off 2 losses. Barboza kind of gassed out. Lopez got finished there, but Arnold Allen, Barboza, Lopez are not bad losses. You know what I mean? He's got wins over Feely, Gabriel Benitez, Don Shanes is not a good win. Caceres. I think that Yusuff might be able to use his – I don't think he's the better striker at range, but I think he's the better boxer inside. I think he hits harder inside. I think if he pressures here, he can do well inside of that pocket area, but also taking advantage of the clinch. I think that Sodiq Yusuff's got an underrated clinch game. He needs to defend these kicks, check these kicks, but get on the pressure and work this guy, work for takedowns. Because Marion Santos, in his career, kind of been taken down by a lot of people. Francis Marshall took him down. Edwin Cooper took him down. Con Offley wasn't able to, but Dan Argueta was able to get him down multiple times. So, although Marion is constantly getting better, I do think he's going to be smaller in this fight. I think Yusuff's the right side here. I'm going with Sodiq Yusuff, and I'm going by a 30-27 decision. And we'll move on to the co-main event where we got Paul Craig taking on Rodolfo Bellato. Paul Craig's plus 400. And it's kind of what you expect, man. Craig's moving back up to light heavyweight. You wonder how much he's training and trying to get better, and I just don't think he's trying to get better. Obviously, he poses a big threat on the mat, always. Very good submission game, and he does have tricky ways to kind of pull you into his guard and get you to where he wants you on the mat. When it comes to striking, the things he's okay at is kicking you at range, but when you crash distance, his defense is horrible. Some of the worst, man. I mean, his chin's wide like this. He's not defending punches at all. If you're able to get inside the pocket on Paul Craig, you win. You know what I mean? And you win. Rodolfo Bellato, a balanced guy. When I watch Rodolfo Bellato on LFA, I think he's quite good. But he comes to the UFC and he doesn't look all that good. He's trained with Pereira, spent time there. Really, guys, like if you go back and watch these fights on LFA, he looks like a killer. You know what I mean? He's dominating these guys in every asset of the game. He's been KO'd by Vitor Petrino twice. In the Iho Potieria fight, not good. In the Jimmy Crute fight, not great either. So I don't think he's looked good in the UFC, but I know he's got potential. He's got really good cardio for a guy of his size at light heavyweight. His takedown defense is solid. He's a black belt on the mat. He has very good low kicks. His boxing defense isn't great, but I don't expect that to be a huge factor here. I do think that he wins this fight relatively easily. You know what I mean? He's got good BJJ, got good takedown defense. He wins the fight, man. Sure, Craig could fluke him and get a submission. It could happen. I mean, obviously, but the more likely outcome is going to be Bellato to get this fight to the not get this fight to the mat, stay on the feet, and knock him out. And I think he does that. So I am going to go with Rodolfo Bellato here. I think he tears Paul Craig's legs apart and defends the takedowns and knocks him out with a left hook. So we'll move on to the main event. Man, it's going to be Gilbert Burns taking on Morales. Gilbert Burns is plus 600. This line was minus 600 like a little bit, like a couple days ago, right? Minus 600 May 4th. The odds have skyrocketed. There's a way that Gilbert Burns could win this fight, but let's be real, man. 38 years old. Coming up on 39 years old, man. Been in all these wars. not athletic. He's small for the weight class, taking on one of the biggest guys in the weight class. And he's taking on a guy who's 13 years younger than him. Does it get any simpler than this? You know what I mean? The way Gilbert Burns wins this fight is countering Michael Morales' shots over the top, which we've seen people be able to do. Trevin Giles was able to crack him with a big shot. Jake Matthews had a couple good shots on him coming over the top. And Gilbert has some good, strikes over the top, but I've never looked at Gilbert Burns and thought he was a good striker, especially at range. I've always thought he's a mediocre striker at range. He's never been a good striker at range. He's just not the greatest boxing. He's a little bit wild, and this is where the fight's going to be, and it's going to be at range, and he's going to get probably dominated. You know what I mean? I imagine Gilbert shoots takedowns here. Michael Morales was taken down by Adam Fuggett, which is not the best. Also taken down by Trevin Giles, which is not the best. But Morales, freestyle wrestling background, fantastic athlete, giant for the weight class, explosive. He's got a crisp jab. He's got good low kicks. His cardio has looked very good. No problems with the cardio in his decision wins. I just don't see a path, man. You got to just hope these guys stop fighting soon, man. Because this is just not fair. I know people are going to say, oh, but Gilbert, he's lost to these guys. Finished in this one. Madalena broke his arm, dominated by Muhammad, dominated by Brady. Dominated in all of these fights, essentially, other than, I guess, the Madalena fight where he won one round. But, really, man? What are his wins? Magny and Masvidal. He's going to be at a massive speed disadvantage, a length disadvantage, a physical strength, every fucking disadvantage in the book. He's got to get this fight to the mat to win the fight. He can't win on the feet, besides a lucky shot. Burns is coming off the worst performance of his career. He got dominated by Sean Brady, outstruck, and I just don't see a way he wins the fight, man. I got to be real here, man. Gilbert's a fun fighter to watch, but he's not all that good. When it comes to this stylistic matchup, it's horrible for him. Literally the worst. When you just look at the style. Got it. Let me get this. I got to get this fight to the ground. I'm going against a guy who's got 93% takedown defense, freestyle wrestling background, very athletic, very strong. And then I got to strike with him at range where he's explosive as hell, fast as hell, powerful. It's not going to work. The guys that are going to beat Michael Morales are guys that are fast, can box with him and stuff his own offensive wrestling, which I think there's guys that can do it. You know what I mean? I don't think Michael Morales as the best fighter. I think he's very talented and he's got a bright future for sure. But I think he's beatable, but not beatable by Gilbert Burns. No. Just a terrible matchup. And that's what it comes down to. My pick will be Michael Morales, and it'll be Michael Morales inside the distance by KO. Gilbert's a tough guy, but this is just a brutal matchup for him, man. Simple as that. That's going to wrap it up for me. I hope y'all enjoyed. Leave a like, and I'll catch you on the next one.